In the heart of a cold and merciless metropolis, where power hides behind expensive suits and calculated smiles, a man named Enzo MorettiA, he commands a silent empire. Known behind the scenes as the Shadow King, he built his fortune on discreet deals and bought loyalties, always governed by one unbreakable rule: no one touches those under their protection. For years, this rule kept his house in order, until the day something spiraled out of control, someone else's injury that ignited a dormant instinct in Enzo. That morning, the clock showed 6:45 when Clara MendesHe, his new housekeeper, entered his office with silent steps and downcast eyes. The steam from the coffee she carried barely disguised the trembling of her hands. Enzo noticed, he always noticed, how the sleeve of her blouse concealed more than just skin. And when the fabric slipped, revealing deep, painful marks, the air seemed to freeze. Clara tried to smile, saying she had hurt herself cleaning the attic, but Enzo saw the lie glistening in her eyes. From that moment on, the powerful man's routine changed. What had previously been just an employee became a silent promise. He vowed to find out who had caused those marks and ensure they paid the price, without gratuitous violence, without fanfare, but with the precision of someone who knew how to move the entire chessboard without being seen. While Clara tried to move on with her life, carrying the fear of a past that insisted on haunting her, Enzo began an invisible hunt, deciding that this time justice would not come from the law. It would come from the shadows. That was the morning Enzo MorettiA ceased to be just a powerful man and became the guardian of a wounded soul. Before we dive into this amazing story, tell me which city and state you're watching from. Leave a comment and I'll reply with gratitude. And take the opportunity to subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, and like this video. We want to bring you more stories like this. The discovery and the promise. It was the beginning of a grey morning, when the silence of the MorettiA mansion was broken only by the distant sound of rain pattering against the glass windows. Enzo MorettiA, a man of cold presence and calculated gaze, was already in his office reviewing reports and figures that would keep anyone else awake at night. But not him. For Enzo, chaos was familiar territory, and control his sharpest weapon. The clock struck 6:45 when the door opened discreetly. The new housekeeper entered carrying a silver tray with coffee served on Italian porcelain, the same ritual all the employees followed. But there was something different that morning. Clara MendesHe walked with measured steps, her body bent as if apologizing to the very air for taking up space. The pale light filtering through the curtains cast shadows on her face, and that's when Enzo noticed. He always noticed. The way she held the tray, her fingers tense, the fabric of her blouse stretched too tightly over her wrist, as if hiding something. "Good morning, Mr. MorettiA," she said in a low voice, almost a whisper. He replied without lifting his eyes from the document, but as she approached, something in his instinct made him look up. The slight slip of the fabric, just a second, revealed the truth. Her wrist was marked. Dark bruises, scattered like iron fingers, a map of pain that betrayed what she was trying to hide. Clara noticed his gaze and, desperately, adjusted her sleeve. "I'm sorry, sir. I bumped into a shelf while cleaning the storeroom." Her voice faltered. The sound came out trembling, broken, like cracking glass. Enzo leaned back in his armchair, silent, just watching. Time seemed to stop. He saw there not only physical injuries, but the truth etched in fear, that raw fear that one cannot learn to fake. For years, Enzo had learned to decipher people. He knew when someone was lying, when they were feigning courage, when they were trembling inside. But Clara was different. There were no tricks. There was pain. And a silent cry for help hidden in every restrained movement. "Sit down, Clara," he said, without changing his tone. She hesitated. "Sir, I need to finish my breakfast." I asked you to sit down." The voice wasn't loud, but there was an undeniable authority in it. She sat on the edge of the leather armchair, her hands crossed on her lap. "How did you hurt your other arm?" The question came calmly, but firmly. Clara froze. A second of hesitation, and Enzo noticed there was another injury. I also hit it. I'm kind of clumsy." She tried to laugh, but the sound came out wrong. The laugh of someone who learned to laugh so as not to cry. Enzo leaned slightly forward, resting his elbows on the table. "Show me." "Sir, your arms." His gaze was piercing. Clara took a deep breath and with trembling hands pulled her sleeve up to the middle of her forearm. The marks were repeated, dark, recent. The silence that settled in was almost physical. Enzo stood up slowly, walked around the table and stopped in front of her. There was no anger in his eyes. There was something far worse, a profound calm, the kind of silence that precedes storms. "Who did this to you?" Clara looked away. "Nobody. I already told you it was an accident." Enzo didn't answer immediately. He just watched the way she pressed her fingers together, as if she wanted to erase her own body. "You know lying to me is useless, don't you?" She tried to speak, but the words escaped her. For a moment, the mask shattered. Fear escaped her eyes, the fear of someone who has already been beaten too much for telling the truth. "Look at me." He gently lifted her chin. "While you work here, no one will lay a finger on you. Do you understand?" Tears came before the answer. She only nodded, trying to hold back her sobs. "Now go. Rest a little." Clara practically ran out, her breath ragged. When the door closed, Enzo stood there for long seconds, staring blankly into space. Then he picked up the phone. "Camila, bring me the file on the new employee, now." The secretary answered without question. Minutes later, the dossier was on the table. He leafed through it. 27 years old, divorced, no criminal record, recommended by a former employer who had moved to another state. No indication of problems, until that day. Enzo opened the bottom drawer and took out a small black leather notebook. It was where he wrote down personal matters, rare but important. He wrote only one sentence: "Find out who hurt Clara Mendes." Then he lit a cigarette, something he hadn't done in months. The aroma mingled with the bitter smell of the still untouched coffee. The housekeeper, Donna Teresa, entered shortly after. "Did you call, sir?" "Yes. I want to know everything about the new employee. Where she lives, who she lives with, what she does after work." Teresa frowned. "Something wrong?" "Yes, and I intend to correct it." The woman hesitated but nodded. She knew that when Enzo spoke in that restrained voice, nothing could stop him. Hours later, in the same office, Enzo received the report. Clara lived in a humble neighborhood, sharing a small apartment with her sister. She had moved there a few months earlier, after a turbulent divorce from a man named Rafael Duarte. A civil police officer was suspended for violent behavior. The assault complaint never went anywhere. There was a lack of evidence, or perhaps there was too much influence. Enzo's eyes scanned the name, his jaw twitching involuntarily. "Civil police officer," he murmured. "So that's it." He closed the folder slowly, as if sealing a sentence. That night, the mansion's office stayed lit late. Through the security cameras, he watched the servants coming and going until Clara appeared. She was clearing away the dinner plates, her hair tied back, her expression distant. She seemed like a different person, fragile, but determined to remain invisible. Enzo watched her for long minutes, unseen, and for the first time in years, something inside him stirred. It wasn't anger, it was a kind of cold indignation, a sense of justice that came from an older, more human place. When the hallways fell silent again, he made a call. "Renato, I need you to find out everything about a man named Rafael Duarte, civilian, ex-husband of my employee. I want his address, routine, contact information, and maintain total discretion." On the other end, the voice replied without hesitation, "Understood, boss." 2 days later, Enzo received the first information. Raphael lived in a rundown apartment in the South Zone, frequented a specific bar almost every night, and according to witnesses, had an explosive temper. What caught his attention the most? He had recently been seen near the street where Clara lived. Enzo clenched his fists. So he's still stalking her. At 3 o'clock that afternoon, Enzo went down to the underground garage. The sound of heels echoed among the lined-up cars. "Where are we going, sir?" asked the driver. "To pay a visit." When the black car parked 2 blocks from the indicated bar, Enzo watched from a distance. There he was, Raphael, laughing loudly, surrounded by other police officers, his uniform half open and the look of someone who considered himself untouchable. Enzo studied him in silence. Arrogance was evident in his gestures, his laughter, the way he held his beer glass with the confidence of someone who feels above the law. Enzo took a deep breath, resting his elbows on the seat in front of him. "You know what irritates me, Marcos?" he asked the driver. "Men who confuse authority with power, who believe that a badge is a license to destroy lives." The driver didn't answer. He knew those words came from a deep place, the same place that had already made Enzo bring down entire empires in the name of a principle. The next day, Clara arrived at work quieter than usual. Deep, dark circles under her eyes, cold hands, a vacant look in her eyes. Enzo saw her cross the hallway and called out to her. "Clara!" She stopped immediately, her eyes wide. "Mr. Moretti, good morning. Come to the office, please." She hesitated but obeyed. When she entered, he was already standing by the window. "Sit down." "Sir, if I did something wrong..." "You did nothing wrong. I want to talk." She sat up slowly, her hands trembling. "Last night," he began, "did you see anyone near your house?" She paled. "Why?" "Just answer." "I heard noises in the hallway. I thought it was the neighbor. But yes, I had the impression that someone was watching me from the street." Her voice wavered. Enzo nodded. "You're not imagining things." "What do you mean?" "Your ex-husband is still following you." The silence that followed was heavy. She brought her hands to her face, her whole body trembling. "He's going to kill me." "He won't." Enzo's voice sounded low, firm, definitive. "Because from now on, nobody touches you anymore. Understand?" She looked up, incredulous. "You don't understand. He's a policeman. He has friends. I've already tried reporting him. It's no use." "I understand more than you think," he approached, placing his hands on the table. "And that's why we're not going the legal route. We're going another way." "Sir, no." "Clara, look at me." She obeyed. "You are under my protection. And when I say that, it means he's no longer your problem. Now, he's mine." The tears came again, silently. She shook her head, but for the first time a different spark shone in her eyes. It wasn't fear, it was the beginning of hope. Enzo took a card from his pocket and handed it to her. "My personal number. If he shows up, if you feel anything strange, call me, day or night. But no arguments." When she left, the air in the office seemed to change. Enzo looked out the window, observing the grey city skyline. There, amidst the coldness of power and concrete, something was about to begin. He didn't know if it was redemption or just a new kind of war, but a certainty grew within him. No one humiliates someone who carries fear in their eyes and still finds the strength to keep living. And at that moment, Enzo Moretti swore that Rafael Duarte would learn, in the hardest way possible, that there are men who don't wear uniforms, but still deliver justice. Silent justice. Justice from the shadows. Justice that, when it arrives, leaves no trace. only the certainty that balance has been restored. The investigation in the shadows. That silent promise of Enzo Moretti didn't just remain in the air, it turned into action. In the following days, the routine at the mansion seemed the same. The sound of hurried footsteps, the aroma of coffee, the rustling of curtains in the morning breeze. But behind the appearances, a web of surveillance was beginning to form. Enzo had activated his small invisible army, people who owed favors, loyal bodyguards, informants who lived among alleys and offices. Everyone had a new name on the list, Rafael Duarte. While Clara tried to maintain a serene expression, the machine was already working silently. Enzo knew that dealing with a corrupt police officer required surgical precision. He couldn't afford to make mistakes, because a mistake in this case wouldn't just be a scandal, it would be a war. At his office desk, he coldly analyzed reports, the photos printed on the glass top. In them, Rafael appeared at different moments, talking to other agents in a corner bar, exchanging discreet envelopes, laughing as if the world were at his feet. He has contacts inside the police station, boss, Marcos, his trusted bodyguard, reported, placing another envelope on the table. But he owes money to dangerous people, gambling, drinking, debt to loan sharks. Enzo nodded slowly. Men like that don't need to be attacked. You just need to push them a little, and they destroy themselves. At night, Enzo would descend to the mansion's basement, a space with concrete walls and yellowish lights, where he kept what he called his operations center. There, screens displayed images from cameras installed at various points in the city. Focus on the Villa Norte neighborhood, he ordered. I want to know everything that happens near the building where Clara lives. The operator zoomed in. A blue car parked in front of the gate, the same one Rafael used. He remained there, engine off, just observing, for 3 nights in a row. On the other side, Clara lived the terror of each dawn. The sound of the engine shutting off, the shadow standing on the sidewalk, the familiar figure behind the dark window. She no longer slept. She spent her nights hugging a pillow, waiting for the sun to rise. And when dawn finally arrived, she put on her uniform, tied her hair back, and went to work as if nothing were happening. Fear, she had learned, doesn't stop the clock. On Wednesday morning, Enzo watched her from afar, reflected in the window. She was in the garden, spreading towels in the sun. The breeze ruffled the strands of hair that escaped her bun, and for a moment he felt something strange. Not pity, but an ancient impulse to protect. The kind of impulse that had made him feared and at the same time human. He stepped away from the glass and picked up the phone. Marcos, double the security at her house. No one comes near without me knowing. That same afternoon, the investigation began to show its cracks. A contact within the Internal Affairs Department confirmed Rafael had 2 filed complaints, both made by women, both without sufficient evidence. The name of the judge responsible for dismissing the cases appeared more than once. Enzo lit a cigar and slowly exhaled the smoke, his gaze lost in the flames of the fireplace. Their justice has a price, mine doesn't. Meanwhile, Rafael began to feel the ground disappear beneath his feet. First came the rumors. A co-worker commented that someone was messing with his files. Then his supervisor temporarily suspended him, citing internal evaluation. Indeed, but the final blow was the deck of cards that began to crumble. The loan shark he owed suddenly demanded triple the amount. The friend who helped him with false reports refused to sign, and the bar he used to frequent began to pretend he didn't exist. All of this had Enzo's invisible touch. He didn't use threats, he used influence. A few well-chosen phone calls, a few unspoken promises, a few silent payments were all it took for Rafael's world to begin to crumble. One night, Enzo received a visit from an old ally, Dr. Alvaro Nunes. "You're treading on delicate ground, Enzo," the man warned, lighting a cigarette. "Messing with a police officer is asking for the whole city to look at you." Enzo kept his gaze fixed on the flames. "I'm not messing with a police officer, Alvaro. I'm dealing with a coward in uniform. And if he reacts, he will react. That's why we've already prepared the stage." On the other side of town, Clara was beginning to notice small changes. The blue car didn't show up that night. The threatening messages had stopped. For the first time in months, she slept without the sound of fear knocking at the door. But a lingering distrust remained within her. The next morning, she went to the office. "Mr. Moretti, may I speak with you?" Enzo looked up from his papers. "Of course, Clara, please have a seat." She stood up. "I know you're doing something, and I want to ask you to stop." He raised an eyebrow. "Why?" "Because he'll find out. Rafael always finds out. When I tried to report him, he showed up at my house that same night. He always knows." Enzo stared at her for long seconds. "And what did he do that night?" Tears welled up in her eyes, but she didn't answer. "I understand." He stood up, walked around the table and stopped in front of her. "Clara, look at me. Do you think I'm like the other men who have crossed your path?" She shook her head silently. "Then trust me when I say that nothing happens in this city without my permission, and what happens now is simple. He will learn what it means to lose power." The following days were a series of setbacks for Rafael. First, his bank account was blocked due to an internal investigation. Then a warrant was issued to seize his assets. Someone had reported suspicious activities linked to bribery. Enzo observed everything from afar, leaving no trace. He didn't need to get his hands dirty. He just had to pull the right threads. But none of that was enough. He knew that men like Rafael didn't understand metaphors. They only understood impact. That's why Enzo decided to take the next step: exhibition. Marco, his digital intelligence specialist, entered the office with a flash drive. "Everything's here: photos, conversations, bank statements." He received money from criminals and used his badge to protect small-scale trafficking. Enzo took the device, twirling it between his fingers. And the evidence of assault. "We got a copy of the 2021 hospital report when Clara was admitted with injuries to her arm. The report said domestic accident, but the bruises are identical to the current ones." Enzo smiled for the first time in days. "Perfect. Send this to the local press. Use the anonymous channel." Marco hesitated. "Do you really want to expose this publicly? It will attract attention." "Attention isn't the problem, Marco. The problem is the silence, and the silence has already cost too much." The next day, the headlines started appearing. "Police officer under investigation for corruption and domestic violence." Rafael Duarte's name echoed on the radio, on the screens, in the cafes. The news spread like wildfire. Clara saw it on television and felt the ground slip from under her feet. "My God, he's going to know it was me," she murmured, her hands trembling. But what she didn't know was that Enzo had already thought of that. The anonymous tip was foolproof, impossible to trace. While the city gossiped, Rafael sank deeper into despair. He tried calling colleagues, but no one answered. He tried to enter the police station, but was turned away. He tried to defend himself on social media, but the comments overwhelmed him. And for the first time, he felt what Clara had felt for months: powerlessness. However, Enzo knew that the cornered man was still dangerous. "He'll try to fight back," Marcos warned. "He'll want to regain control." Enzo nodded, looking out the window at the grey sky covering the city. "Then let him come. He'll find out what happens when you mess with what's mine." That night, the rain returned. Drops beat against the mansion windows like clocks marking the time of something inevitable. And amidst the sound of the storm, Enzo Moretti prepared himself. not only to protect Clara, but to send a message to the entire city. A message that would echo in the alleys, in the police stations, and in the corridors of power. There are shadows that the law cannot reach, but which observe, wait, and punish. The counter-coup and the chaos. The headlines continue to echo throughout the city. Police officer under investigation. Corruption ring in the 18th precinct. Woman breaks silence about assault. The name of Rafael Duarte, it no longer belonged solely to the forgotten proceedings of the Internal Affairs Department. Now, it was public, dragged along by journalists, debaters, and indignant citizens. Enzo MorettiA observed everything from the height of his office, his hands resting on the window, and his gaze fixed on the lights of São Paulo, which blinked below like a living chessboard. For him, chaos was predictable. But in this case, chaos had a face and a purpose. However, what he knew, and what few understood, was that men like Rafael don't fall silent. When power is taken away, they don't disappear. They fight, even as they sink. And that's exactly what happened. The morning after the story was published, Rafael woke to the insistent sound of knocking on the door. His face sweaty, his heart racing. He looked out the window and saw 2 black cars parked on the street. Investigators. The pressure began. Still in his pajamas, he opened the door and received a search warrant. They ransacked the entire apartment, took photos, took computers. When they left, Rafael was alone among the overturned furniture, breathing rage. In the mirror, he stared at his own reflection. Red eyes, unshaven beard, the shadow of a man who once felt untouchable. And amidst the hatred, one name echoed in his mind: Clara. On the other side of town, Clara tried to maintain an appearance of normalcy. The mansion was silent, but the air seemed heavy, as if something was about to happen. She felt the weight of their gazes, not of distrust, but of concern. Everyone seemed to be protecting her, even the security guards. Still, the fear persisted. With each touch on the gate, her heart raced. That afternoon, while cleaning the windows in the main hall, she heard firm footsteps behind her. It was Enzo. Clara, she turned quickly. Yes, Mr. Moretti? Leave that and come with me. The tone wasn't authoritarian, it was urgent. He led her to the office, closing the door behind her. On the desk was a laptop with several split screens. What's this? She asked. Enzo gestured for her to come closer. Cameras. I want you to see something. The video showed a street, a familiar one. It was the block where her apartment was. And there, standing on the other side of the sidewalk, was Rafael, motionless, hands in his pockets, his gaze fixed on the building. That was yesterday, Enzo explained. He stood there for almost 2 hours. He didn't try to go in. He just watched. Clara put her hand to her mouth. My God. He's watching you, trying to scare you, Enzo continued. But he won't get close. We already have men on every corner. If he makes a wrong move, he'll be intercepted. And what if the police protect him again? This time, they won't protect him. They're trying to save their own name. Enzo's phone rang. He answered in a neutral voice. Speak. On the other end, Marcos's voice sounded tense. Boss, Duarte disappeared. What do you mean, disappeared? He vanished from his house. He left in his car at 7 in the morning and hasn't been seen since. His cell phone is off. Enzo took a deep breath. Keep looking. He's going to try something stupid. He hung up and looked at Clara. I want you to stay here at the mansion for a few days. No, sir, I can't. That's not a request. The firmness in his tone silenced any objection. That night, the rain returned, thick, persistent, washing the streets as if it wanted to erase sins. Clara slept in the guest room, but her sleep was light. Enzo, on the other hand, remained awake. He was in the surveillance room, watching the monitors with the patience of a hunter. At 2:35 a.m., A notification flashed on the screen, movement detected at the side entrance. He zoomed in on the image and felt his heart race. A male silhouette, dark hood, walking close to the wall. Enzo immediately stood up, grabbed the radio and ordered, "Team 2, North Wing, suspicious movement." The security guards moved silently. The figure approached the fence, but before it could jump, a bright light turned on, illuminating its face. Rafael Duarte. The man froze for a second, then ran toward the car parked on the corner. 2 security guards chased after him, but he managed to escape. Enzo watched the scene with his jaw clenched. "He's desperate," Marcos said as he arrived. "That makes him dangerous." The next morning, Clara woke up to a tense atmosphere throughout the mansion. Everyone knew Rafael had tried to break in. Enzo found her in the kitchen, making coffee as if nothing had happened. "Why are you up so early?" he asked. "Fear is keeping me awake," she replied honestly. "But I don't want to live in hiding either." Enzo looked at her for a moment. "You have courage, but courage without protection is suicide. So what are you going to do?" "What I always do," she replied, pouring herself some coffee. "Give the enemy the illusion of control before taking it away completely." As he spoke, he already had a plan in motion. Marcos coordinated the team, installing cameras in the surrounding area, while an inside police contact monitored Rafael's every move. The objective was simple: to let him incriminate himself. 3 days passed. Rafael began to lose control of his own sanity. The media called him a symbol of corruption. His fellow officers avoided him, and the Internal Affairs Department summoned him for daily depositions. He drank constantly, slept little, and lived obsessed with the idea of revenge. In one of the bars, between drinks and cigarettes, he blurted out, "I know who did this to me. It was that rich bastard, the one who's hiding my ex. I'm going to settle this with my own hands." The words reached Enzo before the night was over. Everything said in the shadows eventually reached him. Sitting at the table, he read the transcript of the conversation and simply said, "So he chose the shortest path to hell." The following morning, Enzo and Marcos watched on the security cameras as Rafael parked again on the street in front of the mansion. He stood there, inside the car, staring intently at the gates, a bottle in his hands. "Don't come near him," Enzo ordered. "Let him think he's safe. I want the police to catch him red-handed." And so it was. At 3:12 a.m., Rafael staggered out of the car, something glistening at his waist, a gun. He walked to the gate, shouting Clara's name. The cameras recorded everything. 2 minutes later, sirens broke the silence. Police cars appeared, blocking the street. One of the security guards had discreetly called the police station, reporting an armed man threatening a private residence. Rafael was surrounded. He tried to fight back, but ended up surrendering. The scene was filmed and broadcast the following morning by several news channels. The former police officer, who had once believed himself untouchable, was now handcuffed in front of the cameras, shouting incoherent words, his face contorted, his reputation completely destroyed. Clara watched the news report in silence, her trembling hands clutching her cup. When the reporter said Rafael would be indicted for illegal possession of a firearm, stalking, and attempted burglary, she cried, but this time the tears weren't afraid. They were relief. Later, Enzo entered the room where she was and said calmly, "It's over." She looked up, still incredulous. "He's going to stay in prison for a long time. And what if he gets out?" Enzo approached, placing a firm hand on the back of the chair. "If that happens, he won't look for you anymore. Men like him only pursue what they believe they can still control, and he's lost everything." Clara took a deep breath. "You did all this for me." Enzo stared at her for a moment, then looked away toward the window. "I did it for justice. But you don't believe in justice." Not in theirs, he replied with a half smile. At that moment, Clara realized something she had never understood before. Enzo MorettiA was nobody's hero. He was the kind of man who lived between good and evil, the guardian of the gray areas where the law fails and the heart still beats. And somehow, that was exactly what saved her. The weight of silence and the light of redemption. The days following Rafael Duarte's collapse were filled with silence and adjustment. The city had already found another scandal to comment on, and the newspapers that had previously featured his face now buried him in footnotes. But for Clara MendesHe, each sunrise was still a quiet victory, another breath amidst what seemed to be the end of a nightmare. Even so, the peace she was beginning to feel had the bitter taste of a guarded freedom, because even without bars, she still lived within the walls of the MorettiA mansion. The mornings were calm, but full of unspoken words. Enzo walked through the corridors with measured steps, always elegant, always attentive, but with a look that had changed. He was no longer the same man who once controlled everything with calculated coldness. Since the day he risked his own name for Clara, something inside him had shifted. A crack in his armor, a point where humanity began to breathe again. One afternoon, Clara found him in the garden, gazing at the pale blue, almost cloudless sky. "May I sit down?" she asked, holding a cup of tea. Enzo simply nodded. The sound of birds mingled with the gentle breeze rustling the leaves. For a few minutes they remained silent. "I never thought I'd see you out here without your cell phone in your hand," she said, trying to break the tension. He smiled slightly. "Neither did I. Perhaps I'm learning to stop." Stop? Yes. Stop trying to control everything. Stop thinking the world only moves forward when I push it. Clara laughed softly, and he glanced at her, a light, shy, but genuine laugh. "Sometimes, Mr. MorettiA, pushing isn't the problem. The problem is forgetting where we're going." That phrase kept echoing in his mind. For years, Enzo had moved people around like pieces on a chessboard, believing that justice was done in the shadows, without witnesses. But looking at Clara, he realized something he never imagined. That true strength lay not in destruction, but in rebuild. In the following days, he began to change small habits. He went back to having coffee in the kitchen instead of in the office. He kept his security guards at a distance and began walking alone in the garden. At night, he would sit on the balcony and listen to the distant sounds of the city, reflecting on the choices that had brought him there. Clara understood the changes, but said nothing. She simply observed in silence. Until one rainy afternoon brought back memories of the past. An envelope arrived at the mansion with no return address. Inside was a handwritten letter. The handwriting was irregular, aggressive. "You may have taken everything from me, but you won't take her from me. She's mine. She always has been." Enzo read the note slowly, folding it carefully before placing it on the table. "Marcos!" he called, his voice firm. The security guard appeared almost immediately. "I want to trace where this came from. Now!" Hours later, the answer came. The letter had been left in a regular mailbox with no identifiable fingerprints, no video, no clues. But the tone of the writing made it clear. Rafael was still at large. That night, Enzo went to Clara's room. He knocked lightly on the door before entering. She was sitting on the bed, reading. "Did something happen?" she asked, seeing his expression. "I received a letter." "From whom?" "From him." She paled. "But isn't he in jail?" "He was. He got provisional release." "My God." Enzo approached slowly. "I need you to trust me one more time. I don't want you to panic, but from now on you won't be going out alone. We're going to reinforce security." Clara stared at him, her eyes welling with tears. For how long, Enzo? How long will I have to live like this in fear? The question hit him like a punch. He had no answer. He just sat beside her, saying nothing. The silence between them was heavy, but full of meaning. Finally, he said, "Until fear tires of following you." In the following days, Enzo activated all his contacts. The hunt began again, but there was a difference. This time, he didn't just want to neutralize the enemy. He wanted to eliminate the route. Investigations showed that Raphael had fled the city, likely sheltered by former accomplices in a small rural community. Enzo didn't hesitate. "Let's go there," he ordered. The journey was long. The rainy roads and grey sky seemed to reflect the atmosphere inside the car. Enzo, in the back seat, watched the horizon without looking away. Marcos drove in silence, knowing that his boss was in war mode. They arrived at the small village at nightfall. Simple houses, narrow streets, and a single bar with its light on. "It's over there," Marcos said, pointing discreetly. Enzo went inside, the sound of his boots echoing on the wooden floor. The air smelled of alcohol and smoke. Behind the counter, a fat man watched him. "Looking for someone?" "Rafael Duarte." Silence fell like a stone. Some men exchanged glances, others walked away. The bartender cleared his throat. "I don't know him." Enzo placed a large bill on the counter. "Now you do?" The man sighed and discreetly pointed to the back, behind the tool shed. Enzo left without saying a word. The fine rain soaked the hard-packed ground, turning it into mud. He walked around the shed and saw him, Raphael, sitting on a crate, a cigarette between his fingers and a lost look in his eyes. When he noticed Enzo's presence, he stood up slowly. "Did you come to finish the job, Moretti?" he asked with a half-smile. "No, I came to make sure you understood the lesson." "The lesson?" Raphael gave a bitter laugh. "The lesson is that men like you think they can buy everything. But you know what? Her pain. It was the only time she still looked at me. Now I don't even have that." Enzo approached, each step measured. "You lost the right to be looked at when you transformed love into fear. Fear is respect, Moretti. No, fear is the last cry of someone who lost respect a long time ago." The silence that followed was tense. Raphael took a step forward, but Marcos, who had been watching from a distance, raised his weapon. Enzo raised his hand, pleading for calm. "No, Marcos. He's already dead. He just doesn't understand it yet." Raphael narrowed his eyes. "Then just kill me." Enzo stared at him coldly. "No, dying would be too easy. You'll live, but you'll live being what you fear most, forgotten. No one will hear your name anymore. No one will fear you. You'll be a man without a shadow, without an echo, and that, for someone like you, is the worst sentence." He turned and walked back, leaving Raphael out in the rain. No bullets, no blood, only silence. Back at the mansion, Clara waited anxiously. When she saw him enter, she ran to him. "It's over." "How do you know?" Enzo looked at her, tired but serene. "Because a man like him only lives as long as someone fears him. And you are no longer afraid." Clara smiled through her tears. That moment felt like the closing of a cycle. There were no screams, no spectacular revenge, only the peace of someone who survived. Days later, she began packing her things. "Are you leaving?" Enzo asked, standing at the door. "No, I just need to go back to living outside. Life doesn't happen behind gates." He nodded, his gaze a mixture of pride and longing. "You have courage, Clara, and courage is what separates the survivors from the ghosts." She smiled, and before leaving said something he never forgot. "You saved me, Enzo, but without realizing it, you saved yourself too." He stood there, watching her car disappear down the road until the horizon swallowed everything. And for the first time in many years, Enzo Moretti felt his heart beat peacefully. The legacy of shadows. When the city began to spin again with its usual noises and the news found new villains to display in mosaics of indignation, the story of Clara Mendes and Enzo Moretti didn't end. It simply changed rhythm, like a song that changes its beat without losing its theme. Clara, far from gates and cameras, woke up in a small apartment with light-colored walls that smelled of fresh paint and new promises. On the windowsill, a cup of coffee cooled while the sun squeezed between buildings and let a line of light appear above the sink. She had started over, like someone gathering fragments of a mirror and deciding without drama that some pieces don't need to be put back in place. He enrolled in an evening course in food management, started working during the day at a small corner cafe, not to forget, but to occupy his hands with something other than fear. And little by little, the routine tamed the ghosts. The noise of the bus no longer sounded like persecution. Footsteps in the hallway ceased to be omens, and the nights began to be filled with restful sleep without jolts. Sometimes he would still wake up with his heart racing, searching his memory for a sedan engine parked on the curb. He would breathe, count to 5, walk to the window and see only the newsstand vendor setting up his stand. And then he would smile, because freedom is first and foremost a minimal gesture, opening the curtain without asking permission from the past. Enzo, in turn, discovered that stopping a man is easy. What's difficult is halting the inertial movement of a system that feeds on silence. He refused invitations to meetings he would have previously considered unavoidable, outsourced advice that didn't require his involvement, and reduced public appearances until his own name regained the density of a whisper. It wasn't penance or fear, it was method. He knew the message had been understood in the right underground circles. In bars where badges rest under leather jackets, in the corridors that smell of damp paper in police stations, in conversations where the word untouchable suddenly gained an asterisk. And while social oblivion did the work that revenge could never complete, discreet news signaled the closing of a cycle, an administrative process finally moving forward, an investigation reopened, a removal that became definitive. Rafael Duarte still existed, that was clear. Men like that don't disappear, they dwindle. And dwindling, for a predator, is a hell of empty hours. What he didn't know was that the emptiness was also a cure for the city. One Saturday morning, Clara stacked boxes in her new home. Books from when she believed in fairy tales, 2 mugs with chipped rims, photographs that weren't souvenirs, but proof that time had brought her there unscathed. She pinned a simple piece of paper to the bulletin board. Weekly schedule. On it, course times, coffee shifts, a visit to the neighborhood orphanage where, in exchange for smiles and the sweet smell of freshly baked cake, she would help children discover the power of words. It wasn't philanthropy, it was a pact with herself to transform pain into usefulness, fright into presence, the past into possible sweetness. In the afternoon, she strolled leisurely through the square. The sky reflected a vast blue she didn't remember seeing in previous months, as if the vault had been washed clean. As she crossed the street, a car slowed down before she even stepped onto the road, and the driver waved gently, a banal gesture, the kind the news ignores, but which builds civilizations. That same evening, the city once again heard the distant roar of the rain, and Enzo, from the high balcony of the mansion, realized that each drop hitting the stone sounded different since he had chosen not to shoot, not to crush, not to transform justice into a death sentence. Sometimes the hardest blow is to abdicate, an old priest had once told him, one who didn't ask for confession, only for a listening ear. And at that moment, Enzo understood that his power hadn't diminished. He had simply chosen a different kind of consequence. Donna Teresa, attentive as houses usually are, noticed his shoulders were less tense. "You're sleeping better," she commented, serving him tea. He didn't answer. He watched the steam rise and thought that silence, used intentionally, knows how to say "it's over" with more authority than any headline. Days later, a brown envelope arrived without fanfare. Inside, a small newspaper clipping confirmed the dismissal of a civil police officer. Another note, elegantly handwritten, thanked anonymous sources for collaborating with the truth. Enzo smiled, not out of triumph, but out of efficiency. The world had mended itself an inch, and accumulated inches became avenues. Still, there was something to tie up. He called Marcos and asked him to end the patrols in Clara's neighborhood, maintaining only a network of eyes at a distance. Surveillance that doesn't weigh you down, he defined it. He authorized the security company to discreetly leave an emergency button with the building superintendent, and that the corner cafe, unaware that it was receiving protection, would now have new cameras paid for by a neighborhood sponsor. With that, some steps were removed. Effective guardians know when to leave the stage so that life can regain its protagonism. The following month, Clara finished her internship and took a recipe book to the orphanage, annotated in pencil and sugar stains. She taught children to crack eggs without fear, to measure flour as if drawing maps, to understand that the precision of a shallow spoonful is the sister of the courage to start over. A girl asked if scars disappear. Clara replied that some memories change location. They leave the skin and settle in objects, in a spatula, in a cup, on a sheet of paper. It's not forgetting, it's reorganizing. That night, back at the apartment, she received an envelope with no return address. Inside, a copy of a rental contract paid off by a community fund. She recognized Enzo's invisible handwriting in the dry lines. She kept the paper in a transparent folder and wrote on the bulletin board, "Return soon." Not because she was obligated, but because she decided that gratitude, when it becomes dependence, loses its shine. At the top of the mansion, Enzo began to walk between the office and the greenhouse, as if discovering the geography of a house that had always been his, but which now had other seasons. He learned to recognize the smell of herbs in the morning, to hear the motor of the fountains, to perceive that the silence of the hallway is not empty. It is a force field. Marcos, noticing him lighter, dared to ask a question in the garage. "Boss, was it worth it?" Enzo didn't philosophize. She looked up and replied as if signing a receipt. "Thanks. Because no one measures peace in headlines. It's measured in the step of someone returning home without looking back." Sometime later, on an amber-colored late afternoon, Clara appeared at the mansion's entrance with a simple package. Donna Teresa led her to the garden. Enzo was on the bench where the rain had told stories weeks before. She handed him the package, a small cake, smooth frosting, no candles. "It's not a celebration, it's confirmation," he said, with a half smile. They sat down. They talked not about wounds, but about maps. She spoke of the coffee, the children, the course. He commented on books he had promised to read and never had, on plants that require patience. "Have you started breathing again?" "I've chosen again when to breathe," he replied. She laughed. "You still like to control." "Less," he admitted, "just enough to ensure the world doesn't collapse." Before leaving, Clara stood up and adjusted her tied-up hair. "Thank you for everything you did and for what you didn't do." He understood the dual nature of the gratitude, acting and restraining oneself. Two sides of the same coin. "Thank you for reminding me that protecting is not possessing," she replied with rare honesty. On her way out, she crossed the gate with the step of someone who doesn't ask for passage to their own destiny. Enzo watched the street absorb her figure until the curve, and then returned to the house, which at that moment finally seemed the right size. The city, as always, began again the next day. Horns, deadlines, campaign promises, corner gossip, sirens that confuse haste with urgency. But in the underground, where true decisions are drawn, a phrase began to circulate with the care of a useful secret. There are places where fear no longer enters. It wasn't a threat, it was a warning. And if anyone asked who had written the sentence, they would receive only raised shoulders and a cordial silence, because responsible shadows don't ask for credit, they ask for results. Clara now folds square napkins on a white marble counter, serves customers who have no idea what her eyes have already seen, and understands that the greatness of life resides in these intervals. When you serve water to a stranger with kindness, when a bus stops and you get on without counting how many empty seats are around you, when the phone rings and you choose not to answer because the world, in short, doesn't demand justifications. Enzo, in turn, closes the office window and dims the lights. In the leather notebook where he writes what doesn't fit in spreadsheets, he adds a line. To protect is to maintain the right distance between danger and hope. He closes the cover and smiles slightly. Outside, the night spreads a velvety black over the city, and beneath this fabric pulsates a certainty that no one needs to announce. As long as there are those who treat the pain of others as their own, there will be fewer men who confuse authority with domination, fewer streets that confuse silence with impunity, fewer houses where the light is on only to ward off shadows. Some lights are now turning on to invite life in. And that, in the end, is all that justice, true justice, has ever wanted to be.